Before I pray, I want to tell you that we are going to revisit the first 6 verses of this scripture later in the fall when we pick up a new sermon series and a theme for the fall of Holy Encounters. So really today we're going to focus on the second half of the passage that Abby just read for us. So hang tight for that first half. Please pray with me. Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. You're going to fall, so let's learn how to do it well. It was one of the first things that my neighbor said when they took me for a day trip to learn how to downhill ski. You're going to fall, so let's learn how to do it well. I know that I have talked in sermons here about the yard sale when you're skiing and you fall so bad that your pole is over there and your ski is in the tree and your gloves at the bottom and everything is so all over the mountain. That's a bad fall when you're skiing. That's not what you want. A good fall is more contained, right? Less likely to hurt yourself or others. And that's what my neighbor tried to teach me how to do. Which is great because, of course, I fell, and I do fall, a lot. But because of his lessons and his tips, I can get up more quickly and cleaner, and I am able to ski more runs. My neighbor reminded me that everyone falls every once in a while, even if you are a great skier. Looking back on it now, I can see that the point of his lesson was not how many falls I had, nor how many good runs down the mountain I accomplished. The goal was to instill a lifelong joy and love of skiing, appreciating the beauty and the fun and the wonder of it. He knew that a fear of falling would hamper that joy, so he made it clear from the very beginning. You will fall. How can you fall more gracefully? What will keep you going? Jesus gives the same pep talk to the disciples as he sends them out 2 by 2 in the story. He tells them, only take 1 staff and a tunic, nothing else, like keep your skis in pizza formation. When you get to a new town, don't go shopping around for the fanciest house to stay in. Just find a place that lets you stay and stay there until you're ready to leave. Keep your poles down so you don't poke someone's eye out. And then possibly the most well-known piece of advice from this scripture, when they don't listen to you, when they won't hear God's message, shake off the dust on your feet. You're going to fall, so let's do it well. Really, we should anticipate this shaking off the dust as part of Jesus' instructions. Jesus himself has just interacted with a whole town who would not hear his message, who shut him out. And it's his hometown. Jesus knows as he sends out the disciples that they will not have a 100% success rate. Even Jesus, God in flesh, does not have a 100% success rate. Olympic skiers fall down the hill sometimes. But we who live in an era where perfection is this weird and terrible goal, we read into this story the questions of what happens if they say no? What happens if I don't say the right thing? What happens if I say exactly the right things, but then they still don't believe? Isn't that the goal? What happens if I'm telling people about God and then they don't join my church? What happens if they don't join my team? What happens if I fail? What happens if I fall? And that's not the question that Jesus is answering. Those are the wrong questions. By his own example, Jesus says, we will fall. We will make the mistake. People will not hear the message, or they aren't ready or willing or whatever to hear about God's love when we are sharing those stories. The question that Jesus is answering is, so what should we do when we fall? What should disciples do when people won't listen to God's message? That's where this pointer of dusting off your feet comes in. Here is how we fall well. First, Jesus says that dusting off your feet is a testimony. Basically, this action is one more thing that the disciples can do that makes an impact. Dusting off their feet shows whoever they are talking to and whoever else in the neighborhood is looking on and spying over fences how seriously the disciples take this mission. The message that they are sharing from God, one of love through Jesus, is of the utmost importance. And it is serious enough to make a statement like dusting that person or household off if they aren't willing to hear the disciple. It's similar to that statement that Pilate makes by saying, I wash my hands clean at the time of Jesus' death. Or it's like today when we tell a loved one, well, then do it your way, but don't say that I didn't tell ya. I've never said that. Dusting off your feet is one final act to bring home the meaning and the importance of God's word. Okay, got that first one. The second way that dusting off your feet is a tool for when we fall comes from another ancient Jewish tradition. Whenever Jews traveled out of Israel, whenever they went to a place outside of their homeland, to a place that wasn't Jewish or Israelite, before they would return, they would shake off the dust from their feet before they came back to their homeland, to their sacred places. It served as symbolism, not just to remove the ungodly parts, but more about coming home to their faith. Jesus is saying, if disciples, when I send you out 2 by 2, if you go into your house and you try your best to share the good news, but it's just not getting through, shaking off the dust means that you leave that place, the place that's not interested in hearing about your faith or God, and then return to a sacred place of your own. Shaking off the dust meant coming back to a safe place of faith and refueling before heading out again. Sometimes we need a break, a chance to fill up our spirits before we go pour them out again. Sometimes you go in the ski lodge and get a snack, because snacks are definitely a safe and holy place to refuel before making more falls. There's one more thing that I think is a part of Jesus' pep talk about how we can fall well, and it's important that we don't skip over it. Remember exactly what Jesus says. If any place will not welcome you and they refuse to hear you, as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them. Jesus does not say, run and never return, shun their household. No, that is not what Jesus says. Far from it. Leaving someone who doesn't want to talk with you doesn't mean that you are condemning them or dooming them or they'll never speak to them again. It doesn't mean that you'll never come to that threshold once more. Frequently, this scripture about dusting off our feet is pitted against others, especially that parable about the shepherd going and finding the lost sheep. In that parable, Jesus says, God is like the shepherd who goes out and will do anything to bring in the one sheep, will go to great lengths. And then in this scripture, Jesus is saying, no, just dust off your feet, move on. So they're pitted against each other, but I feel like it's comparing apples to oranges. Because really, the shepherd-sheep analogy would be like the shepherd goes out to find the sheep, but instead of the sheep being like, oh, great, you found me, the sheep is like biting its hand and kicking the shepherd and like, no, I want to be here. Let's just leave me alone. Perhaps, though, after some time of being in the wilderness, the sheep might change its mind. Just because we shake the dust off of our feet, it doesn't mean that we will never go to those people again. No. If you invited someone to come to church with you or to join a mission event 15 years or even 15 months ago, when they said, no, ew, are you kidding me? That would have been a good time to shake the dust off your feet and move on, but would their answer be the same today? Perhaps it's worth asking again. Jesus says, as we share the good news of God, there will be falls. We will fall down the mountain sometimes. When you do, shake the dust off your feet so you can make sure everyone knows how important this message of God's love is to you. Shake the dust off so you can have a chance to let it go and refuel yourself in your own sacred spaces before you head out again. And shake off the dust so you have the opportunity to come back another day. That is what falling well looks like. That's what Jesus is hoping we can do and calling us to do. I also want to note, though, that falling well and gracefully means that we don't treat evangelism or sharing God's love like some competition or a test. Jesus never intended this commission of the disciples to be some sort of like church competition, right? To gain members or followers, to win people to your side, or see how many houses say yes versus how many mistakes we make or how many people say no. No. If talking about God is some sort of odd scorekeeping situation, Jesus himself would be the biggest loser. Jesus' evangelism and sharing about God's love brings betrayal, civil unrest, denial, and death. So no, it's not about that either. Our charge to proclaim God's message is not about how many are falls and how many are good ski runs. It's about the lifelong joy and wonder and love behind all of the attempts. Jesus sends his disciples, sends us, to proclaim God's message of love for all. Because we can't help but share the good news that has so fundamentally shaped our lives. God's love has changed who we are, so we share that with others. That's what Jesus does and what he asks of us. Jesus is just wise enough that from the very beginning, he warns us that sometimes we will fall. Not everyone will hear the good news each time that we tell it. It's not a perfect journey. But Jesus' love for us runs so deep. He stands out in the freezing cold on a mountain with a 5th grader and gives all the pointers. Make sure they know how important it is. Don't forget to refuel. Come back another day. Go on. Dust your feet off. You're going to fall. So let's learn how to do it well. Hallelujah. Amen.